About you and tell me about your service.
Well, I joined the Navy when I was 17 years old.
What year was that?
1951.
Okay.
January the 1st of 51.
Uh-huh.
And I made it to Korea real early. I took basic training in Great Lakes, and 3 months later I was in Korea getting shot at.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't even have a battle station.
That was a quick trip to the front, huh?
Yeah. See, the Navy, they had to get these ships, had to get enough personnel on there to operate them.
Right.
And they didn't have during peacetime.
Right.
And this war broke out, so they sent all us recruits over there.
Yeah.
And they forgot to train me on the big guns, and the first day they was in this harbor and they opened up on us. I didn't have a battle station, and everyone started running and running to the battle station, and I'm down there in my rack sleeping. I'd sit and watch that night, and first thing you know, I was the last one down there. And so I saw the last guy going up the ladder, and when he turned and closed the hatch, I spun him off of it.
Right.
I thought, I'm not staying down this hole by myself.
Right.
So I followed one of the old chiefs up to underneath a gun mount. He said, get against the wall and just out of the way until we get this little battle over with and get out of the harbor. And so that's what happened.
So what harbor were you in at the time?
We were in one of the most famous harbors in Korea. It's where the Pueblo got captured back years ago, Wonsan Harbor.
I see.
And it was a big railroad depot, and we had round the clock firing.
Right.
And to keep those railroads knocked out.
I see.
And they didn't particularly care about that. So they would every now and then send a few rounds at us too, and they were dug into the banks and hills. You know, they were dug in pretty deep, and so they'd run them guns out on the tracks and fire about 40, 50 rounds, and then slide back in the hole before we could hit them. Sure, we caught a few before they got back in there, but it's hard to knock them out.
Yeah. You know. Well, all the military services were somewhat depleted after World War II, and for there weren't. I know that both the Army and the Navy were just a fraction of what they had been during World War II when Korea broke out. So, you know, they had to get built up again to fight Korea, didn't they?
Yeah, we slept on the floors till we got signed bunks aboard ship. That's how.
Now, what ship were you on?
I was on the USS Leonard F. Mason.
Okay, that's
tin can.
That's the shirt you have on.
Yeah.
That's a tin can. Now, how did it get to be called a tin can?
Because they're made of tin, I think, Tom.
Okay, I knew that was
I believe they're not heavily armored. The heaviest piece of armor on it was the gun mounts were pretty well armor, had pretty thick armor, but the main director had the most armor. And it didn't take me long to figure out where I wanted the battle station.
Right.
And so I waited till there was an opening, and I got to be a pointer and the main director on top of the bridge. It was the top of the ship, but it had about 1.5 foot of armor on it, so but if they knocked that main director out, we couldn't fire.
Right.
We could fire, but we wouldn't know where we were firing.
Right.
And we had to have that.
Now, is the Mason, right, I noticed you have that shirt. Is that in Mobile now?
No, it's scrap ironed.
Okay. But at one time it was in Mobile. Is that right?
No.
Because I noticed your shirt there. It says.
Oh, that was where we had a reunion.
Oh, that's where you had a reunion.
We had a ship's reunion in Mobile.
Because I was in Mobile about 1.5 years ago, and I went to the park there where the USS Alabama is.
Yeah.
And there's a great war memorial there and all that. So I didn't know whether it was still there or not. That's where you had your reunion.
Yeah, we've had about 10 of them now.
I see.
And they're pretty interesting too.
Yeah.
But no, the Mason it was commissioned in '46. There's an interesting story too about the Mason picking up Neil Armstrong when they ditched the capsule in the Pacific. Neil Armstrong's mother and Leonard F. Mason's mother were good friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we've been to Leonard F. Mason's hometown and found his sisters and his brother, and we've had all those at the reunions.
So now did the Mason pick up Armstrong in one of his previous flights? Is that what he?
They picked him up when they had an emergency ditch in the Pacific.
Right.
And the
okay.
Mason was the closest destroyer.
Okay.
Right. And then they got to it in, I think, 2 or 3 hours. They got to him and picked him up. Put him on a fantail and took him back to wherever.
Right.
Yeah.
So take me back earlier before you enlisted. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
I grew up in a little town in Kentucky, Uniontown, Kentucky, with 11 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And that's one of the things I'm pretty proud of too. Is I've got 5 brothers, and all 6 of us are veterans. 3 World War II and 3 in Korea, and the one. 2 of them in Korea. One of them went through the battle of made the Normandy invasion, and went all the way to the Battle of the Bulge, and with Patton. And he come home, luckily. And then I had a brother that got the USS Princeton shot out from under him down in Luzon. And
at the Leyte Gulf.
At the Leyte Gulf, yeah.
Well, I need to talk to you about that, because that's a coincidence. He was on the Princeton.
He was on the Princeton
when it was torpedoed.
Yep, it was actually one bomb.
Was he a pilot?
No, he was a gunner.
He was a gunner on the Princeton.
On the Princeton. Yeah.
Well.
Well, you know somebody.
Well, no, I don't know somebody that was on the Princeton, but okay, here's the story. My mother's first husband was a Navy pilot. With the VF-27, he flew the Hellcat, the F-6F Hellcat. VF-27 is the squadron that had the nose art of the cat's mouth nose art on the front of the F-6F Hellcat.
Yeah.
Okay. His squadron, he was killed during a training exercise over Hawaii, about 2 weeks before his squadron embarked onto the USS Princeton.
Oh, for God's sake.
VF-27 was on that. This was my mother's first husband. He wasn't my dad. My mother later remarried, and that was my dad. But he's my brother's dad. And his squadron VF-27 was on the Princeton, and about half of them were in the air at the time it was torpedoed, and the other half were on deck. The planes were on deck and went down with it. And the half that was in the air needed a place to land because their boat was smoking.
Yeah, it's gone.
And I've got a picture, as a matter of fact, that I got from the U.S. Navy in my office of one of these F-6F Hellcats landing on a carrier, making a landing on a carrier, and in the background of that picture you see the Princeton smoking.
Oh, for gosh.
I've got that picture in my office. The Princeton is going down. It's just been torpedoed. So I know a little bit something about the Princeton.
Yeah, well, my sister's got a whole book of it. If I ever get a chance, I'll show it to you.
There's some pictures. So your brother was on the Princeton when it was shot?
When it sunk, yeah.
Did he die there?
No, he got off.
Okay, he got off. Okay.
I've got only one brother. I've got 11 members of my family still living. The only one I lost was my brother that was on the Princeton.
Is that right?
He got killed on a tractor in Kentucky.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So 4 of your 5 brothers are still alive?
All of my family's still alive. I got 5 brothers. 4 of them are still alive.
4 brothers and 5 sisters?
6 sisters.
6 sisters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they play pretty.
That's right. There's 11 in all. So
12 altogether.
12 altogether. Okay.
6
you have
boys.
11, so there's 12 all.
6 boys and 6 girls.
And of the 12, only one has passed.
One's gone.
Well, you all have, and he was killed in an accident. So you all have a lot of longevity. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tom. I'm pretty proud of that.
I bet you are.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Kentucky, and your brothers were all veterans. And then what'd your folks do?
They were farmers.
They were farmers?
Mm-hmm.
I guess in Kentucky that's what you did, right?
Yeah, my grandfather had owned quite a few farms.
Yeah.
And he willed one to my dad, and we all 12 of us were raised on that farm.
Right.
I know what hot biscuits and gravy's like.
So of the 12, where do you come in?
I'm the youngest boy.
You're the youngest
and I
boy.
got 4 younger sisters.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the youngest boy.
Yeah.
So you were home while your older brothers, or at least 3 of your older brothers, were off at war in World War II.
Yeah. And I can still see my brother coming through the gate up there after he got home after the Princeton was sunk. I could still see him coming through that gate. I get tears in my eyes.
Well, good, you should.
We were all running toward it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, man, that's great. Okay, so you enlisted when you were 17 in the Navy.
I had my 18th birthday right before I got to Korea.
I see.
About a week before I got to Korea.
Right. So how did that process go to where you enlisted, and did you have any basic training, or?
Yes, I had 9 weeks at Great Lakes.
At Great Lakes, yeah, you told me that. Okay.
And then they shipped me to San Francisco, and I caught a troop ship, and then picked up my home for the next 4 years in Sasebo Harbor, which was fairly close to Korea, and they just came in, loaded. I think they took on 50 recruits, and we went right back to Korea.
Right.
And then we had a lot to do with the carriers. Destroyers. I'm sure you want to hear about destroyers too, what they do, and I'm sure you know, but they protect big ships mostly. And we had 3 different jobs we did the 4 years I was on it, and one was, I guess, the most important part was bombarding and knocking out the railroads and protecting the frontline troops whenever they were close enough for us to go to fire in on. We got a lot of calls for help, and we could get in pretty close and open up fire. And the second big job we had was plane guard, when they launched planes and brought them in. And we picked up a few of the young men that weren't quite as lucky as most of them. And then the other one was patrolling the Formosa Straits. They kind of rotated us. You'd go in and get shot at a few days, and then they'd give you a break. They said, well, you send a Mason down to the Formosa Straits and let them patrol that for a while. And then we'd go out and protect the carriers and battleships and the cruisers for a while.
Right.
And then back into shore bombardment, which wasn't my favorite spot.
No. No, because they were shooting back.
Right. They shot back quite a bit.
Yeah.
It was funny, Tom, too, and I know to this day, I know why they did it. We were close enough in to where they could see us standing in a chow line along the bulkhead of the ship.
Right.
And it seemed like every day for a week, they'd open up on us at lunchtime. I never got a good lunch until we got outside that harbor.
And you ate quick, right?
I'm sure they could see us lined up out there, and they thought, well, now's the time to get them. They're trying to eat.
Right.
So,
yeah. Wow. So what was your job on the Mason? Were you a gunner? Is that what you were? Or what?
Well, about the first year and a half.
Once you got a battle station, you knew what you were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you get your battle station
right
after you get shot at, I guess. No, my first battle station was in a powder room at the bottom of the ship.
Okay.
In fact, I'd go down there and stand watch in that thing, because you stood 4 on 4 off when you're in the war zone. And I learned to sleep on those powder kegs. Wow. Because the first time I went down there, I had my life jacket on.
Right.
And the old salt that was laying there sleeping woke up, and he said, Thomas, you might as well take that life jacket off and lay down and sleep. He said, it's 4 hours, just 4 hours down this hole. And I said, man, I'm not taking this life jacket off or anything with all this powder down here. He said, son, you don't have to worry about a life jacket if this stuff goes off.
Yeah, so life jacket's not.
I realized then that life jacket wasn't going to do you any good now.
Right. So you slept around the powder kegs. That was one.
I did, yeah. That was my first battle station, and then I knew I had to get out of that powder room. I didn't like that, and then I went up to the main director as a pointer. That's when I realized that there's a lot of armor up there, and if they hit us, I'd have a better chance. And,
now,
I enjoyed that.
What does main director mean? What is
that? Means that that main director can control all the guns on that ship.
Okay.
If we get to take on fire, and we go back at them, we can lock on to the target and push a button, and every one of those guns on that ship will lock on that target.
I see.
And they say commence firing, and they make a lot of noise when they get. They call them salvos, and we'd shoot a bunch of salvos into them caves and stuff, you know.
Right. So go ahead. I mean, so you were.
But I lasted up there until I got out of the Navy. I was in the main director probably for probably 3 years of my time in there, which is I was a fire control technician before I got out.
For 3 years?
Yeah.
A fire control technician.
Yeah.
What does that do?
They
tell them where to go, where to shoot.
Yeah, exactly. They got a big room downstairs, and they've got all these controls on it where they control all the guns. They control the torpedo rack. See, the destroyer I was on had 4 torpedo chutes, and we also had depth chargers and hedgehogs. The destroyer's loaded with a bunch of stuff. But anyway, my battle station, get back to my battle station, it was on that main director for 3 years. And it's pretty important job up there, because if you don't get on the target, you're not going to hit him.
Right.
And so I had 2 little wheels down there and looked through here, and we had 3 guys in there. We had a pointer, director, and a gun captain, or director captain in that hole up there. Got a little crowded in there, but it's a good place to read books.
Right.
Yeah.
So did the Mason take direct hits? I mean,
one time, not a direct hit. We got shrapnel one time. We were lucky.
Yeah.
There was quite a few destroyers. I didn't realize it till I got out of the Navy and started reading, Tom. There was a lot of destroyers that were hit there.
Right.
You know, doing just exactly what we were doing.
Yeah.
And a few of them hit mines. A couple of them hit mines when we were out there. They didn't clear the harbors out that well.
Right.
That was the most spookiest thing I think I was in, is those darn mines. Because you'd sleep down there and you'd be in the harbor. We'd never leave that harbor at night. We'd anchor sometimes. But the weeds, you could hear the seaweeds going by.
Yeah.
And you're trying to sleep, and you think, is that a seaweed or not?
Right. Wow.
It gets a little touchy.
Yeah, I can't imagine what. So, day to day, were you mostly just off the shore, providing cover, or were you taking out railroad tracks, or just a little something different every day, or?
Mostly it was the same thing every day. Like I said, Wonsan Harbor was the biggest railroad depot in Korea.
Right.
And our job was to keep that knocked out.
Right.
And we did it. What we did, we would do a figure 8 in the middle of the harbor.
I got you.
All day long. And at night, sometimes we would anchor, because they didn't have very good detection, and so they couldn't detect us. They couldn't zero in on us. They didn't have good radar, I guess, like we did.
Right.
We could pick up a santan as soon as you got out in the water and knock them out. That was another job we had. We knocked out some sampans that were. What they tried to do, they tried to sneak a big artillery gun on a little island out to the entrance of the harbor, and they were going to get us when we come out of there, or get the ships when they come out. And we spotted them coming out, and the good old American Navy, we fired 3 rounds over them to warn them that if they didn't go back or let us know who they were, that we were going to take them out, and that's what we did. The next morning they come floating by, but they had a 105 millimeter gun laying in the bottom of that sampan.
I see.
Yeah. And of course, down pilots. A lot of times we were. I guess the officer of the day knew where these planes were going to be bombing, so we would maybe pull out of the harbor, go up the coast a little way, in case one of them got hit.
Right.
They could sit down next to us and we'd pick them up, and which happened 3 or 4 times. We did save some young men, and we picked up some that weren't so lucky.
Right.
You know, and then our other main job was out with the fleet, like I said, guarding the big ships. We'd be out on the outer perimeter of the ships.
So you were one destroyer in part of a fleet. So when you looked out over the water, you could see other Navy ships, carriers?
Yes, we would be. It was called Task Force 77.
Task Force 77. That was the name of the fleet?
That was the name of the fleet, yeah.
Okay.
And
how many boats were part of that about?
There was, most of the time, there were 2 to 3 carriers, maybe a battleship, possibly 2 cruisers, and the rest destroyers.
Right.
There'd be probably 2 squadrons of destroyers, which is 4 in a squadron or 4 in a division. We had 3 ships with us all the time. We'd come back to the States together, and we'd spend our time 6 months here and go over 6 months, and spend those 4 ships stay together all the time I was in there.
So what are other than your first day and getting shot at your first day and being baptized pretty early into what this was all about, in 3 years, what are some of your other memories or snapshot are pictured into your mind that you don't forget? What events? What were some of your most memorable days?
Well, I don't know what I should tell you this not, but you can cut this out if you want. But Doc Cooper, you know Doc Cooper. He's a friend of mine. He enjoys his story.
He's my doctor. Yeah.
When I was in Midway, we would stop in there and refuel, going over, and the Marines occupied Midway.
Right.
And they always had lemonade and iced tea there for us, and we'd have a little party before we went to Korea, because we didn't know where we were going to get back or not. And I had a little too much lemonade one day, and I got up on the bridge, and I told these friends of mine, I said, you know what? I said, I used to do a swan dive off the bank of the Ohio River. I said, I believe I can do a swan dive off of it. And I did. And as I went by the quarterdeck, I saluted the officer of the day. So that wasn't too good there. But it was one of my funny stories. Luckily, I didn't hurt myself.
That was quite a high dive, though, right?
It was a very, very high dive. I didn't think I'd ever hit the bottom. But I did.
What would that have been? 50 feet? 60 feet? What was that?
It's quite a ways up. It's a lot further than I thought it was.
And it looks a lot higher when you're up there than it does to the people on the ground. I know that.
Yeah, and they just had told us don't go in the water because the barracudas in there. So I don't guess
but you had
the barracuda either.
But you'd had too much lemonade to hear them say that.
Yeah, it didn't make any difference. That was Midway Island and the Goonie Birds there. You've heard that story. And another story is that I've just celebrated my 50th wedding anniversary, and I met my wife aboard the USS Mason.
Well, now tell me that story.
Yes, well, she had a date with one of my shipmates, and I was laying up on the forecastle of the ship getting a suntan, and I looked down, and here come this beautiful blonde down the pier, and I said, holy mackerel, where did Hayes get that? The guy's name was Jack Hayes, I'll never forget it. And he brought her up on the forecastle and said, hey, I'm going to go down and get Marguerite some coffee. And I said, well, go ahead. So I had to make some fast time and do a lot of fast talking, so I did, and I told her, I said,
told him all the bad things about Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, I said, he's no good. Get rid of him.
He's no good. Yeah.
No,
you can write him letters in jail.
Yeah. That was the last
So what was you doing in Midway?
No, she wasn't. I'm sorry, she wasn't in Midway. She's in Long Beach.
Oh, in Long Beach. So
That was our home port in Long Beach.
Okay.
And
okay.
he was the last sailor she dated outside of me.
I see.
Well,
good work.
I
Good
fell
job.
in love right away.
So is Jack Hayes? Is he still around? Do you know? Is he?
I'd love to see him, but he's
He doesn't
not.
come to the reunions?
No, he hasn't been at the reunion, and I know
he may still be mad at you.
He was from New Orleans. Yeah, he's probably mad at me. He was a pretty good guy. I'd like to thank him for introducing me to my wife.
I'll bet. And y'all been married 50 years?
50 years, yeah. Got 2 sons, Bill and Mike, and we've been in Texas, Aggie land for 30 years.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Then you got out in, when,
54.
54?
Yes.
And then what'd you do?
I went to Chicago. My wife was from Chicago, and we decided to go back there to meet her parents, and I got a job with a printing company, and I spent 25 years there at the printing company. And then I got transferred to Houston, and we ended up in College Station.
I see.
Yeah, with an oil company. I got out of the printing business, went into the oil business, and
in Houston.
In Chicago.
In Chicago.
And in fact, my boss owned an oil company. He wanted to know if I'd come down and help him, and so I said, "It don't snow, let's go."
What did you do for the oil company? What oil company did you work for?
I worked for Cashco Oil. It's a local here. Well, the main office was in Houston, and I was a purchasing agent for them.
I see.
I spent their money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had a good time with them. It was a good company.
And how long have you been in College Station?
We've been in College Station 30 years.
Okay.
So we like it.
You were transferred here by
I was
Cashco?
transferred here, yeah, right from Chicago, right to here. We had a field office in Iola, Texas, and we had a main office in Houston.
I see.
And I lucked up and got out of the Houston traffic and got up in the Iola traffic, which is about 1 car a day.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But it was, I don't know, I kind of cherish my Navy life, but
Sure.
I saw a lot of the country and a lot of the world. I went all the way down, almost got to Australia, but they called us back to Korea in the last minute, and we didn't make it. But we went Guam, Okinawa.
All aboard the Mason?
All aboard the Mason. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, that was my home for 4 years. I didn't
So
get
you
off.
were floating all around the areas where the war had been fought until Korea broke out, and that's when they called you back to Korea, right? You were
right. Yeah. They would. It was funny. Our duties were like I said, the Formosa Straits, bombarding of the Korean shores, and plane guarding. But they would give you breaks. The Navy would give you a little R&R, and they would the crew never seemed to find out what our trip was going to be. We went to Okinawa. We spent 2 days there. To this day, I don't know why we were there. We were able to pull Liberty.
right.
And then we got off there, we went to Guam.
Yeah.
And, of course, Midway, we went through there every time we went overseas. In Hong Kong,
Right.
Taipei, Formosa. I saw it all.
Yeah.
Hong Kong, I think, was one of the most interesting ports that I was in. But for a young farm boy from Kentucky, I got around pretty good.
You did. Who was the commander of the Mason?
We had 4 different ones
While you were there?
served. They changed about every year or so, but my favorite one was Captain Ferreter, which is a World War II captain. And he was a super guy. Took care of his crew. The other guys...
was he your last one?
No, he was my first one.
He was your first one?
Yeah, he spent 1.5 years aboard. And then we got a little fellow named Caspera. we almost threw him over a couple of times. He wasn't too good to his troops.
Uh-huh.
And I can't remember the other ones.
So you have a reunion, what, every year, every 2 years?
We have it. Yes, we have a reunion every year.
Every year?
And someone just said, I'll take it.
Host it? Mm-hmm.
I'll host it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And next year we're going to Charlotte, North Carolina.
I see.
I believe it is.
Have you hosted it?
No, I haven't. I figured, maybe there's not quite enough to see here in College Station. We generally go to, like, we've been to Mobile, and of course we've been to Iowa and Missouri a couple times.
Right.
We go anywhere if somebody wants to have it.
Yeah.
But it's a great time to see these guys that you haven't seen in 40, 50 years.
Right.
And you went through a lot with them.
Right.
And you laugh a lot now, but it wasn't funny then.
No, that's true. So how many usually show up at the reunion?
We have close to 100.
My goodness.
Started out with 9. First one we had 9. The second we had like 25.
Right.
And then they got it jumped right up to 100.
Do y'all have a website or anything? Do y'all,
no, we
y'all
don't.
communicate through computer or
Just
email?
a little bit of computer,
a little bit of email.
a little bit of email. But mostly by phone and just
old-fashioned way, writing letters and stuff like that.
Yeah. The guy that I was telling you about that was up in the director.
Mm-hmm.
He was a captain and a director, or the main guy. And I knew where he was from, so I called the Chamber of Commerce down in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And he answered the phone. And he remembered me after 40 years.
Right.
And then he said he was going to make a reunion. And then right before the next reunion, he called me and said he was in a car accident and he lost his leg.
Oh, my.
And he didn't think he could make it. So, things like that. And the guys that show up, it's really great.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah.
The reunions are.
Do you have any photographs or anything?
Got one of the ship over there. And
good.
I got.
You got the whole deal of that.
What?
With the that chap floating up.
Oh, that's just a couple of pictures. The Koreans and stuff.
I want to see what you got, because I might want to paper this morning that Emilio's funeral is Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. And I guess you were going to go to that?
Yeah.
Or were you going to go to that? But will that give you enough time at 1:30?
I thought they said Tuesday.
Well, no, the paper this morning said Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the paper this morning said, Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
But it shouldn't last, now that could be wrong, but I think they said that there's a service,
At St. Joe's at 10.
the actual funeral service is 10 o'clock Wednesday morning. Now, I believe they said that there was a rosary, I believe.
Yeah, I've got the eagle right here.
Rosary at 7 tomorrow.
Yeah, there was some tomorrow, but the actual funeral, I believe it's in there. He's the only obituary
10 o'clock at
today.
St. Joe's.
Yeah, it's 10 a.m. Wednesday.
Okay.
Visitation is 5 to 9 tomorrow, and then there's a rosary at 7 tomorrow at the funeral home at Memorial in Bryant. Yeah, there's that.
Okay.
But 1:30 is when we do this, so that would give you plenty of time. Yeah, because I was going to try to be there Wednesday also, having known Emilio also, so I was going to try to be there too if I could. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello? Who? Yeah, this is Richard Owen. No, this is not Mr. Owen. I think you called once before, young lady, and my name is Owen, but that's my middle name. Well, you got my right number.
You're interested in
Chrissy, there's no Chrissy here.
My brother was buried in Ireland.
You got, somehow you got my number, but you got the wrong person.
He was
All right,
Was he
He was,
In Korea or World War II?
he was a retired military. He had served in 3 different wars, in World War II, and then,
Korea?
uh-huh.
I'll be going.
And he had 3 wars behind him, and he died the 2 years in May.
Would you tell Tom you interviewed his brother? Tom interviewed his brother, Ed Iyer?
Yeah. Oh, is that your brother?
Your brother.
Oh my goodness, yeah, sure, yeah. I had Ed on just,
He did so well.
what a wonderful story, yeah, he was at Iwo Jima, yeah. Yeah, he was part of the Marine unit that he wasn't one of the ones that raised the flag, but he said he was there and was right near it, yeah.
And this is all of this is my older brother, and all of his children are in the military. And so, this is, as they were,
Why don't you bring it
So
up and
Ed's
put it
your
on the
brother.
table, huh?
yes, maybe.
Yeah, let me
I don't want to keep you in.
No, I'd like to see them. Well, then you're,
Put your right one up. This is my other brother.
That's my mom's oldest brother here.
Right.
This is the one that died. And he,
There.
this is the one that just passed away 2 years ago?
mhm.
Well, I can tell because he looks kind of like Ed.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he just, my other brother, Bill, from Chicago, he had all his medals so
Right.
that he could show them like that. He was quite,
So Rich, Ed is your brother-in-law.
Ed, my brother.
Well, the reason that how I found out about Ed was from his nephew, who works over at
John.
Sean.
oh, Sean.
Yeah,
oh,
Sean was the
yeah.
one that told me about his dad. Because I know Sean very well because Sean works he does video for the athletic department over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I do, my job, I'm the sports director for WTAW, so I'm in athletics a lot. And I've known Sean for a long time, and one day Sean came to me and said, you need to go out and talk to my dad. So that's how I got hooked up with Ed. And when I went out to his house out there and visited with him. And yeah, there's Ed right there.
Yeah,
I see him.
that's right, yeah.
Well, how about
These are
that?
all of Frank's children. The one that died 2 years ago is in Arlington, except that's me here.
Right.
Lieutenant
His daughter.
Colonel and a staff sergeant.
Right.
And a major.
That's one who's a colonel.
Uh-huh.
She was a lieutenant colonel, staff sergeant, huh?
Mhm.
And a captain.
He's a captain now.
Yeah. And
You got the
it
swab
was,
jockey up there too, that's his oldest brother.
and of course this is all of the ceremony at,
Did you ever make one of those ceremonies,
Well,
Tom?
no, I haven't.
oh my
No, I
gosh.
haven't.
else.
I'm sure it is. As a matter of fact, I'm coming to think of it, I think when I was at Ed's house, I was looking at some of these same pictures.
Oh, all right, then you
Yeah.
I
probably
was. I was
seen it.
looking. No, I was looking at some because he had pictures also.
Yeah,
I know
like
of
this.
his brother's service.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
right.
this.
So I'm looking at that. I thought some of these pictures look familiar. That's right. I saw him at Ed's
I never
house.
thought of that,
Yeah.
with his boots. Yeah, well then you don't need to see him.
Well, no, some of these are new. No, but I thought, well, that's amazing how that works out. Wow, that's good. Do you know where KAMU is? Where
Yeah, I
the TV
think so.
station is?
Over there and we take
It's that one-story building. Yeah, if you go on to Houston Street off of George Bush, that's right there where that's right there. Houston Street is the street that goes between the former students building and the foundation building. Those two buildings there right off of George Bush. That's Houston Street that goes right into campus, right by the side of Kyle Field. Yeah, well, the first building to your left it says Broadcast Educational Services, KAMU TV. It's the first one-story building.
Yeah, I know where that is.
And you can turn left just past that building and go park behind the building. There's a parking lot back behind the building, back near where all those tennis courts used to be, and now there's big satellite dishes back there and all that. There's a parking lot back behind KAMU, and there's where it says 24-hour reserve parking. You can park in one of those. Those are their parking spaces. You can park in one of those, and they won't touch you. So where it says 24-hour reserve, go ahead and park in one of those.
How about a dress code?
I wear a coat and tie, but you don't have to. You can just wear
Man, I like wearing a coat.
well, if you like to, do it. That's good. I wear a coat and tie for every show. Just because I did, but you don't have to. You can just wear a coat, just shirt, trim tie, whatever you want to wear, just fine. And what we'll do is we'll sit just. Well, you've seen the show. We're sitting just pretty much like you and I are sitting right now. You're in a chair and I'm in a chair, and it'll take them a few minutes to get the microphones on us and get the sound like they want it and get the lights like they want it. And once they do that, we just start talking and we just go. We don't break. We don't cut. We don't.
Just keep
no
going.
commercial. We just keep going for 27 and a half minutes, and I'll lead you along. It'll be just a conversation that I'll kind of guide the conversation, but you'll do most of the talking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show a couple of these pictures in the middle of it, and you talk more about the ship. And like I say, if you find that album, bring it along, because I can before the show I can pull some out and hold them up, and they can shoot them with a camera, so we can do that. And it'll be a good show. I'm looking forward to it. I think you're going to be just the second Korean War veteran that I've had. That's just only Korea. The other one was, oh my goodness. You're going to be the 44th veteran, so sometimes I have a hard time remembering. You're the 44th.
Really?
You'll be the 44th show that new show that we've done. We've repeated some shows. We've been on for a year now.
Yeah,
It's hard to believe. We've been on for a year.
One of them. I watched Doc. You had Doc on a couple of them.
Yeah. So I repeat them from time to time. So we've had 52, well, almost about 56 weeks worth of shows, but that represents about 42. I think you'll be the 44th, actually, one that I've interviewed. And I can't remember the other Korean War veteran. He was.
You didn't have Pete Linger on, did you?
No.
Pete was. By the way, that's that director I was telling you about. On top.
Who's Pete?
I'm trying to think who was that song. Three of them.
It was, what's his name? He goes to all the women's basketball games. I see him all the time.
You mean that you
And I'm trying to remember.
stay there?
I want to say his last name ends in, not Eddington, not,
I probably don't know if you remember it now.
I'll remember it when I can't remember right now who it was. But I've had some really great shows and met a lot of great people.
Oh, I love it. I think you do a hell of a job.
It's funny. The toughest one that I had getting on the show was Al. He kept not wanting to do it, and then we'd get it scheduled, and he'd make an excuse. He said, "Oh, I'm sick. I can't do it. Don't feel good. I fell down today. I can't do it." You know? I mean, he was nervous. He kept feeding me excuse after excuse why he couldn't do it. So finally, I said, "Al, no more excuses. I went out and picked him up, brought him over there, and he was one of my best shows.
He did good.
He was so natural.
I was nervous myself when he
was just so natural, and he was one of my best shows.
Yeah.
He really was. He was one of my best shows.
He was good.
Because he was just natural. And they still talk about him. Doc Cooper was my first show.
Yeah,
my first one.
That's right.
He was show number one. We didn't even have the set yet. We didn't have the flags in the background or anything when we did
I love that too, the way you put it on.
We had I had him and your VFW commander,
Rick Alvarez.
Yeah, Rick Alvarez. They were my first two shows, and we didn't have the flags even for those two shows. We got them for the third show, and then and got the set going for that.
It's really neat.
Well, I really enjoy doing it. This last week, I emailed them this morning because they kind of messed up. They got them out of order. I think I was out of town. Did you see this last weekend? Did you see a fellow named Claude Mounts, who was a Navy? He was a Navy pilot.
Oh, really?
And
I don't think I saw it. I was down in Houston.
Were you?